My name's Steve Merry. I'm a senior product designer at Hornby, and we're here today to photograph the Stadler 755. Well, basically we scale down the real thing to 1/76 scale to create obviously a scale model of this lovely train. I'm not saying that just because I'm sat on it, but it's true. It's a very nice looking train, and we design. My job is to design the product so that it looks as realistic as possible to the modelers. We'll hopefully design it at a scale speed that also applies to the real thing. We try and get as much detail as we can because the rail enthusiasts like to see that detail, and it shows that we're giving it the care and attention that the product needs. Well, obviously there's a lot of components on the roof and obviously on the undercarriage as well, and we'll be including all of that to make it again look as realistic as possible. So since I got back from Crown Point, I decided that as it's the central part of the train, I would actually start working on the power pack. There's quite a lot of detail in there, and there's two versions. You've got the 4-engine one and the 2-engine one, which look completely different on the top, with obviously the 4-engine power pack having there's 12 fans and obviously all the exhausts. And if I go over to the 2-engine one, and say it looks completely different on the top, but there's a lot of detail gone into this. Then went on and did all the articulated bogie as well, and the whole idea of that is it will pivot. There we go. So that should then pivot in between the two carriages as it goes around the tighter curves of the scale track. Okay, I then went on and did the motorised bogie that sits underneath the driver's cab, and this motor and all the gearing will be at scale speed of approximately 100 miles an hour, and you've got a motor with 2 worms and then the drive gears that go down to the axle. Then after that I then moved on to car C. Done all the roof detail on top, including all the pantograph and all the bus bars and everything that goes with that, plus all the GSM aerials. And from that I've then moved on to car B, which has got the same pantograph on there as well, but the roof detail is completely, let's say at the other end, is completely different. And my next job, once I've finished doing the underneath of car C with all the water tanks and the waste tanks for the toilets, I'll start working on the interiors of these 2 coaches, and then once they're done I'll then start moving on to cars A and D, which are the drive cars.
My name's Chris Riley. I work at Hornby Hobbies. I'm the sound engineer and electronics engineer at Hornby Hobbies. We've come today to record the sounds from the Class 755, and that includes obviously full start-up running sounds, any auxiliary noises, cab start-up. It's a whole sort of raft of full functionality that the loco offers. We're looking to obtain as many sounds as possible, doors opening and closing, pantograph up and down, because ultimately the sound profile that we use is going to go onto our decoders, and we're going to use it within the Class 755 model that we're producing.
We now have the final design for the Flirt, both the 4-car and the 3-car versions. If you we've had some major problems with the design of it. The biggest challenge I had to incorporate, was to incorporate the motor and try and hide the motor as best I could. So I came up with a rather nice very small motor which fitted beautifully. Managed to hide it between the seats in the carriage. Looked amazing. When we've got the 3D print done, unfortunately the motor got very hot. It was under so much strain that they would have burnt out in no time at all. So unfortunately this lovely little motor has now been put aside, and we've now got a slightly bigger motor, which is a 5-pole motor, which would be a lot stronger. Unfortunately it's a bit bigger, so it's not as well hidden as the original design, but we've tried to hide it as best we can, either between the seats or on the other carriage at each end, because there's a motor in each end. In the disabled area it's probably a little bit more prominent than we'd like, but hopefully it won't detract from the model too much.
When we have something as radical as this, I mean, the design of the real thing is radical. We're producing an accurate model of it, and we have to test and test and test. Now, what we'll do, we'll run it through all our point sequences, fast, slow, leave it running, see if anything overheats, run it and just see if anything does go wrong. It's a great design.
The final CAD will go over to our vendor in China, and they're sitting there ready, waiting to start production. So, and then next will be tooling, first shot tooling, which will probably just after Christmas, and then following that will be a running sample. Once everything's all approved, then sometime after that they'll slot it all into their production schedule, and then you get mouldings and product for the high street.